All right, so to begin our retopology process here, we've got our skull loaded up. We can see that he is 1 point almost 7 million polygons, and if we take a look at his poly frame, you can see that he was created with Dynamesh. Okay, if we get in real close, you can see there's that real sort of ugly Dynamesh geometry. Okay. So we'll go ahead and turn this off right here. So at 1.7 million polygons, this would be way too heavy to bring into certainly a game engine, and even too heavy to bring in as a prop or something to in a film. All right, it's just way too heavy. Now we needed those polygons, 1.7 million polygons, to create this shape inside of ZBrush. But if we were going to use it in anything else, a game or a film, we have to lower the polygon count on this. And inside of ZBrush, there is a specific technique to do this. Actually, there's a couple of techniques, but the best way to do this to have the most control over our edge flow is to use a Z-sphere. So I'm going to come over to my subtool palette. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and insert right here. You can either append or insert, especially when there's only one subtool in here. It really doesn't matter which one. So we'll go ahead and insert a Z-sphere. All right, and that Z-sphere will be loaded up in our subtool palette. And if we look around in here, you'll see that our Z-sphere is right there. We'll turn on our transparency, and you can see that the Z-sphere is inside the skull right here. So with the Z-sphere selected, I'm going to go ahead and grab the scale, turn on scale right here, and make sure again with that Z-sphere selected, I'm going to click on here and drag, and that will make that Z-sphere smaller. All right. And really what I want to do is I can also go to move here, and I can move this up a little bit or move this back or what have you. Ultimately, what I want though is the Z-sphere to not be protruding from the model. All right, I want it either, let me turn this back on here, either the Z-sphere can be inside the model where it's not protruding and it's not in the way, or it certainly could be out here somewhere. All right, as long as it's not protruding from the model and in our way while we retopologize. Okay. But I'm going to go ahead now and I'm just going to go ahead and put it right back inside the skull there. It's fine right where it was. Like I say, we just don't want it sort of sticking out the bottom right here. Okay. So with that Z-sphere inside the skull, we are ready to start retopologizing. A couple things I do want to point out though. I'm going to go back, make sure you go back to draw. All right. Anytime you do a move or scale with your Z-sphere, always have to go back to draw before we do our retopology. But I do want you to notice with this Z-sphere selected, if we scroll down to the bottom of our tool menu here, we get a couple of extra menus. And those are topology and adaptive skin, as well as Z-sketch and rigging. You get those as well. But we don't need those for our retopology. So with the adaptive skin menu open and the topology menu open, all right. Now, before I go too much further right here, I know that by default you can't open two menus inside of ZBrush. By default, if you open one and then open another, the first one will close. So to avoid that from happening, because it is kind of good to have both of these open, if you come up to Preferences, go into Interface and UI, right here where it says UI, you can turn off the, where is it here? Oh, sorry, it's not UI, it's palettes, okay, and one open subpalette. So by default, that'll be turned on, and when that's turned on, you can only have one menu item open. So I'd have adaptive skin and then topology, and you can see adaptive skin closes. So with this turned off, okay, and again, that's in Preferences, Interface, Palettes, one open subpalette. We'll turn that off. All right, close that up. And now, when you do that, when you come into Interface and turn off one open subpalette, make sure you come back up to Config and Store Config. All right, store config will make sure that that setting stays. So again, I'm going to go ahead and open up my adaptive skin and my topology. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make sure that my adaptive skin is set to 1. And if you're doing your retopology in ZBrush 4R8, you will also have this Dynamesh resolution slider. And you should set that down to 0. Okay. If you're working in ZBrush 4R7, you will not have this Dynamesh resolution slider to worry about. So just don't worry about it. But in 4R8, you should put that at 0 and density at 1. All right. Once that's set, you can come down to the topology palette and turn on edit topology. Okay. And once edit topology is turned on, what I like to do at that point is come up and take my draw size all the way down to 1. All right. Now it should be noted that I am, I'm a huge fan of using your pen and tablet when you are sculpting inside of ZBrush. But when you are doing retopology where pressure sensitivity is not important, I would strongly suggest that you use a mouse for your retopology. Okay. All right, so we're all set to go. We've got edit topology turned on. Density is set to 1. We have our Z-sphere selected in our subtool palette. All right, the visibility of our skull is turned on. And one more thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come up to transform and make sure that my symmetry is turned on by hitting X. And now I'm ready to go. All right, so let's come over here. And we'll start retopologizing this guy. Now, I do like to have, especially if my model is symmetrical, a center line on my model. So what I'm going to do is come over here, and you can see my two symmetry points lining up right there. And just so you know, if I turn on my transparency here, they're only lining up while I'm right over top of the Z-sphere. If I'm up over here, all right, I cannot tell if my symmetry is turned on. If I'm down here, I can't tell. Only when I'm over top of the Z-sphere can I see that my symmetry is turned on. So this is why I come up to transform and just visually check that my symmetry is turned on. Okay. All right, now we're ready to start dropping our points down. So I'm going to come right down here to about the center and click. All right. And then I'm going to come up a little bit, click again. We'll come over here, click, click again, and come down to our point here and click again. Okay. All right. So it might be hard to see, but we've got 2 polygons created. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my skin shade white here. Just might be able to see this a little bit easier. All right. And if I come over here to preview and click on that, and then solo out my geometry here. There's a solo button right here. I'm going to turn on my polyframe. You can see my 2 polygons that I've created so far. All right. So my workflow here is to hit A for preview to turn that off. All right. And then S for solo to turn solo off. Now, you may have to map the solo button to the S key. All right. It's entirely up to you if you want to do that. I find that workflow works best for me when I hit, by default, preview is A, so I'll hit A, and then S for solo, and then I can see my retopology real quick, and then hit A to go back, and S to get out of solo. All right. If you are unsure how to create a hotkey, please refer back to the week 1 videos on creating hotkeys. And I just find it to be a good workflow to have the S key, and you can find the solo button right here in the transform. There's solo right there. Now by default, there is not a hotkey assigned to solo, so you would have to assign your own hotkey to that. Okay. If you just hold down Control and Alt and click on that button, you will get a prompt right across the top right here. All right, so let's come over here. I'm going to hold Control and Alt and click on that, and you'll see across the top there it says Press any key combination to assign a custom hotkey. So at this point, if you want, I would suggest pressing S, and that would assign the S key to the solo button. And if you want that to stay, you need to come up to Preferences, go to Hotkeys, and Store. Okay. All right, so let's continue. We've got our first couple of polygons on there. Now I'm going to go back and I want to start a fresh point here. So I'm going to hold Control and just click on that point. And now this red circle that we see here, that's the point that I'm going to be paying attention to the most. Because from that point is where I'm going to place my next point. So I can either come up here straight off of that red circle, or I can come over this way straight off of that red circle. Okay. So from here, if I come up and click, and then come over here in the middle and click, and then come down here and click again, I'm connecting those points up. Now I've got, again, if I hit A for preview, and then S for solo, you can see there's my two polygons. And again, keeping this density on 1 will allow you to see the actual polygons you're creating. So I hit A for preview, S for solo again to get back to my model. All right. And I can go ahead and, continue retopologizing. Let me just scroll back here. 1 second here, it's frozen up on me. All right, 1 second here. I'll just come back up here and select this, and then hit F. There we go. And we'll come back down here. All right. Okay, so now I want to come back and continue this center line right here. But my red circle is right here. Just let me see. And just let me undo that first. Sorry. Oh, 1 second, guys. Just having a little bit of a. There we go. Okay. All right, so let's go back up here. I'm going to hold down Control and click right here to start from that point, and then come over, click there, and right here, finish that off. All right. So again, keeping an eye on that red dot right there. Let me just move this down a bit. All right. And make sure you're working on your model fairly close. Don't push it too far away. So from that red circle right there, again, I want to come straight off of that. I don't want to come off on a corner, because then I'm starting to create triangles. All right. So let's undo that. All right. So from this red circle, I'm going to come straight up, click, click, and click, join that up. All right. And again, from here, there's my red circle. So I can either come up here or I can come over this way. Again, following that red circle and understanding, I can go from that red circle, I can come down here, or I can go this way. All right. Now, it's important that you preview your geometry often. I do it after I put down every 4 or 5 polygons. I'll test my geometry by hitting A and then S to preview it. And what I'm looking for, and I make sure that I turn my polyframe on, because I'm making sure to look for triangles or holes. You want to try and catch those things early so you can fix them. So the only way to catch them is to preview it by hitting A to preview it. And if you've mapped your solo button to the S key, you can hit S to preview it that way. Okay. So I'm going to hit A and then S to go back. And I'm ready to start some more points. So I don't see my red point anywhere, so I'm just going to hold Control and click. And that will create a new one. And then I can come in here and lay these points down. Okay, there's my red circle. So coming in here. Okay, just like that. So again, A and S. It's looking good. A and then S. Now, while I'm doing this, I should be coming up here and saving it. All right, so you can come up here and save it. Let's call this V1. Okay, we'll go ahead and save that. Because at any point, if you want to, you can stop what you're doing, all right, and quit out of this and come back and finish this up later. Now, one thing to note, right, I just went ahead and saved this, and what happens when you save it is, if I come down to the topology right here, the edit topology gets turned off when you save it. All right. Remember, you have to be on the Z-sphere to get to this menu, edit topology right here. So we'll turn that on, and now you can see we are ready to start retopologizing again. So now one thing that you should note is that you can use the move tool right here. If I click on that, I can use that move tool to move some of this geometry around if I find that it's not perfectly straight or satisfactory. I can come in here and make slight adjustments using the move tool. Now our points on here will do their best to stick to the model, kind of like if it was live inside of Maya. But be careful, because you can pull them from the model quite easily, all right, if you're not paying attention. So undo that. So make sure that if you do move your stuff, your points around, that you are looking at it from various angles, and making sure that you're not pulling it straight off the model. All right, because that certainly could be bad. All right. Should also be noted that when you are ready to come back in here and add more points, make sure you go back to draw. All right, because if you're in move and you come in here and hold control and click to put down another point, you won't be able to do it, all right, as much as you click. So you need to be in draw. And one more thing to note, that if you are unhappy with what geometry you have, you can hold Alt and click, and you can delete points, all right, just by holding Alt. And then when I'm ready, I would hold down Control, come back in here, click. So now I've started a new point, and then I can continue with my topology. All right, hitting A and then S to preview it, making sure there's no triangles or holes, A and then S to go back, and we are ready to continue with our retopology. So I'm going to go ahead and work on this some more. In the next video, we'll come back, and I should have this mostly finished.